Is the Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to St. Luke. Glory to you, Lord Christ. Jesus looked up at his disciples and said, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you, when they exclude you, revile you, and defame you on account of the Son of Man. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, for surely your reward is great in heaven. For that is what their ancestors did to the prophets. But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full now, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who are laughing now, for you will mourn and weep. And woe to you when people speak well of you, for that is what their ancestors did to the false prophets. But I say to you that listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you." Ooh, that's the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Christ. If you're still able, have a seat. So, All Saints, I can remember one of the great experiences of my life as a marathon runner. I think every marathon runner, the gold standard is the Boston Marathon. And the thing about Boston is that you have to qualify. And that means you have to run in your age group, you have to run a certain time. And up until the time that I was thinking about it, my best time was probably 20 minutes slower than what was required to run the Boston Marathon. But I decided to belly up and train, and did, and qualified and went to Boston. And it was great. It was great. And the thing that I remember about Boston was the last section of the race is along what they call Boylston Street. How many people know Boylston Street? Anybody been on Boylston? It's a famous, Copley Square, the library is there, it's beautiful. But there's a lot of dining establishments at which people they make alcohol available to human beings, which is always a mistake. And, you're running down Boylston Avenue, which is, fairly huge. And, of course, there's no traffic. And lining Boylston Avenue on each side are probably 15 deep intoxicated human beings, mostly screaming at the top of their lungs, "Go, go, go!" And that's the communion of saints. Yeah, the thing is that if you think that the only people in this room now are the ones that you can see, nah. Now, you remember that before we offer the Sanctus at the Eucharistic prayer, "Holy, holy, holy," I will say something like, "And with angels and archangels and all the company of heaven, we laud and magnify thy glorious name, evermore praising thee." And so, although there may be a few of us in the sanctuary, we are with angels, archangels, and all the company of heaven. We're surrounded by a sea of witnesses. Of course, here at St. Luke's, we give thanks to a handful of women who, after World War II, decided that there should be an Episcopal church in Calistoga, California. And with their vision and their spunk, they went out, and here we are. Here we are. And so we're reminded of those that have come before us. And not only do we give thanks for the saints on whose faith we rest, but our loved ones, All Souls Day. I know that all of you took time, intentional time on Wednesday to remember your parents, loved ones that we love and are with us no longer. And, it's an entire week of remembering the dead. The dead. Where did they go? Where might we go? Just having turned the corner on 73 years, I'm looking much more in that direction than I am the day that my little feet hit the planet. And, I don't know about you, how much thought you've given to what happens when you die. But, there's a lot of people that have given a lot of thought to it. And there was a time not very long ago when any conversation with the dead was simply poo-pooed. Seances, Ouija boards, talking to dead relatives and stuff. They weren't given the time of day. It's changing. It's changing. Now, one of the pioneers, I was asking Nathan this morning, fairly young man, if he'd ever heard of a guy named Raymond Moody, MD, Raymond Moody. And in 1975, how many heard of Raymond Moody? Just out of curiosity. Yeah, a couple. Raymond Moody, MD, who was the first kind of legitimate guy, an MD, a real live, doctor, who was doing research on near death. And what he did was, he came across an instance where a person had been, really seriously injured in an automobile accident. They brought him to an emergency room. They did everything they could, pronounced him dead. Everybody else but an attendant left the room. She was left in there kind of cleaning things up. All of a sudden they hear this, ah! And they rush in and she said, he's alive. And so the next day, the emergency room doctor went and said, what happened? And he told them, here's what happened. Tunnel, light, being, blah, 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 got to go back. So this piqued Raymond's curiosity. And he went on to interview several hundred people and then wrote a book called Life After Life. And it's really quite interesting and groundbreaking. But that was 1975. He wrote that book, and that was kind of a legitimate introduction to the phenomena of near death. And then in 2012, you'll remember there was a neurosurgeon at a Harvard-trained neurosurgeon in Boston at the Brigham and Women's Hospital who had meningitis and was in a coma for 7 days. And Eben was, they were just about ready to disconnect everything and let him go. And he returned to life and had probably the most detailed chronicle of a near-death experience up to that point. If you've not read Proof of Heaven, I recommend it highly. So ever since he came out with that book in 2012, I'm on his email list. I just subscribe to his website, and they get updates. And a couple of weeks ago, one of the things that came up on his website, that there was going to be a conference on November 1st through the 4th entitled Beyond the Veil, Beyond the Veil. And this was going to be a 4-day conference, about 6 speakers every day, talking to the phenomena of life after death. What happens after you die? And of course, one of the people interviewed in the program was Eben Alexander, but there were a number of others. And we're not talking, off the wall, woo-woo, whatever. These are legitimate PhD students doing significant medical research on what we call parapsychological material. Now, I have a dear friend who is a contemporary psychologist. She deals with children who have been diagnosed with terminal illness. And she did her research primarily in South Africa with children that had contracted AIDS. But she was trained. Her undergraduate work was at the University of Virginia. She did postgraduate work at Duke, and then her PhD was at Yale. And I asked her, because she graduated in 2003, I said, in those legitimate environments, were people studying anything like near death, anything like that? And she said, absolutely not. There was a class at Duke about paranormal psychology, ESP, stuff like that, but they were required to take that class off campus because of the Christian opposition to it, the church's opposition to it. So that's kind of where we were about 20 years ago. All that's changed. All that's changed. And these men and women that were interviewed in this particular conference for 4 days were very legitimate scholars doing very legitimate research. And was it interesting? Was it interesting? There are people, for example, that are gifted mediums. We used to think that people who spoke to the dead were probably in the brain dead. Not so much. Not so much. No longer do we think of near death as an experience of oxygen deprivation in the brain. No, these experiences are real, and a lot of people have had them. How many people have either had or know of someone who has had a near-death experience and come back and talked about it? Yeah. It's not a significant demographic, but it's a real demographic. And then there's the phenomena of shared death experience. This is a whole new field that's opening up about people who are gifted at the time of transition. They're a little bit like death doulas. In other words, their particular gift is being with people that are dying, and in fact they accompany them across the veil, and then come back at the designated time when the person is there safely. And then, there's all kinds of different mediumships and people who talk to fairies and angels and spirit guides and so forth and so on. And it really goes on and on and on. And I, for one, find this fascinating because the reason that buildings like this exist and the reason that people like me are to bring some kind of reassurance or some kind of faith to bear on the phenomenon of dying. How can we go on with this kind of pain? What are we to understand? And of course, the Christian promise is the same as to the thief that repented on the cross. Jesus said, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." What did he mean? What is heaven? Are there requirements? Is there a to-do list that you have to check off? Well, apparently going to church isn't a prerequisite. And I think that's one of the reasons why the church is failing. It hasn't kept up with the reality. And as a species, while it may look rough out there, we are actually evolving into, there was a time, remember Horace Greeley, "Go west, young man," when, the unknown territory was an undiscovered piece of geography. That's not the case. What we're beginning to discover now is consciousness. Consciousness. That is the new horizon. That is the hope of the future. That is the goal of evolution, that we will evolve to understand how ineffable love is and why we're here on the planet, which Jesus made very clear, to love. The earth is like a big classroom. You got to do the work, do the homework, and it's not all that easy because there are just people give you too many reasons not to. Not to. So we have all this phenomenon. I'm not really going to beat this up, but there was one of the mediums, and she said that her spirit guide had given her a message for today. And although she was reluctant to disclose it to such a public audience, she was told that the timing was perfect. And I would encourage you, if you have the interest, to look into what's happening beyond the veil. And the good thing is, it's so all about love. And the experiences that these people have are just, they make you weep because there's such reassurance that there's nothing to be afraid of, and that it's all going to be all right. So this is a spirit guide being channeled by one of our contemporary mediums today. The light within you is like a chasm of love for all to see. There is no end and no beginning, only the now. You are here with us, and we are happy to be connected in this way. This is a traditional greeting. It's an offering of respect and gratitude. We are here with you with only the deepest respect and gratitude and love. It is not as it would seem in this place you called home. It is a frequency of great peril in some ways for what the collective conditioning has been evolved to. But it was all a great experiment and free will, and the suffering has to come to an end. For there will be no life if life on earth continues in this way. And that is why we are here now with this offering. It is a way of being, evolving, and awakening. It is indeed, as you say, a return to the time that was before. We have been planting these seeds with many awakened souls over time, so that once the time was right, we would be able to come back to the seedlings and bring them to full bloom. There has never been a greater time in the history of this planet than now to be living. It is a rare and very special time, for it is a cross-section of two times as one. It is the yin-yang that some cultures have spoken of in its embodiment. More and more people are beginning to wake up to the imbalance and the atrocities of life out of balance. The light within people's hearts is beginning to spark and flicker, unlike any other time in history. There will now be a great wave of awakening on a global scale. This is what brings peace and unity to the collective. We do not see that it is instantaneous for these souls who have yet to awaken to the calling, and there will be some who will refuse the call or deny it out of sheer free will. But no matter, they are part of the great awakening as well. There are many who are now awakening on a level that they have never seen before, because the atrocities are now so loud and so close and so personal for so many. These atrocities are like blazing neon signs of greed, hatred, vengeance, and gore. It is like a giant billboard of inhumanity. It is hard for anyone with a soul to look upon these things and not feel anger and sorrow and grief and complete disgust. However, these are the very things that are waking up compassion on a global scale. These poor souls who have suffered in these acts, that have had agreements that they would come and offer this as a way to help shift people in awakening deeply, as sacrifices for the collective healing on a grand scale. There is no need for people to feel anger or rage or guilt when looking upon these matters from a spiritual perspective. However, we see that this is easier said than done, especially for those that are on a human level. We also see that there are many who are beginning to understand and come to terms with this great mystery and the miracles that have unfolded over time, and the great invisible magic that comes from living in connection with your spiritual life. This is something we'll begin to see more and more of, far and wide across the planet. This is a very good thing. We're so happy to see the incredible stirrings and the connection already starting at this time. These are only the beginning of something far more grand, bringing incredible healing to the planet. Know that we are here, walking beside you, leading you to this work. Yes, we will guide you to the next steps to make it all possible and offer a great healing to a great many people all over the world. This is magic in the making. It is a big stew being served up for spiritual nourishment and the healing of the suffering. We are here with you. Thank you for taking the time to listen. We know that human life is full of challenges and other mundane tasks, but far too often we see that you are so busy in your humanity that you are forgetting to believe in your own divinity. This is the gift that you're here to offer to the world, the beauty of living in both. In time, we will offer bigger answers and also pose questions to humanity about its own evolution. This is not something that is left to just one country or one culture. This is simply a matter of each individual making a conscious choice to his or her own awakening. It is love cracking through the darkness and bringing in the light in profound and wondrous ways. Remember that the spiritual path is a marathon and not a sprint. It is an uphill climb, mountains and valleys, and all of it is part of the great journey and evolution. Don't worry that you're not doing what you should be doing or going fast enough to do it. There is no right or wrong. You are doing your part, and that's all that matters. You are doing the work always, simply by being who you are. Doing your work is simply about you being open and offering. That is all you need ever do. Shine your light where you are. Be who you are, your true self. We are here with you, guiding you always. We are complete. Thank you for this beautiful connection and our time together. This was a very special communication, and we are very pleased.
Contributions to St. Luke's Episcopal Church help to make the digital ministry and other outreach within the community possible. If it is in your heart to make a donation, St. Luke's secure PayPal link, as well as the church's mailing information, may be found in the description of this video. Thank you.